Black athletes in America are like thoroughbred horses. They're bred, nurtured, trained, and fed until it's time to race. And when the race is over, they're discarded, replaced, or sold to the next highest bidder. William C. Roden, the $40 million slave. Welcome back, fam, to another episode of Cess Talk Sports, BY's Poly Sports Tea Time, where hoops, politics, race, and real talk all intersect unapologetically. It's Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies, and I'm posted up with my no hoes barred, say it with her chest co-host, Political Lil. What's up, Lil?
What's going on?
All right, y'all. Today, y'all, we taking y'all beneath the surface, okay? This ain't about box scores or viral highlights. This one's about the root of black athleticism, the glory, the grind, and the grip that racism and white supremacy still got on our athletes, especially black women. This episode right here is called From the Fields to the Courts: Racism's Grip on Black Athleticism. Let's make it plain. Black greatness in sports didn't show up. It's legacy. It's centuries of survival and resistance. But even now, in the era of NIL deals and curated campaigns, black athletes still get commodified, controlled, and often conveniently left out of the room when it's time to talk power and ownership. Not much has changed from slavery to segregation to right now. Same playbook, different uniform. So we ask, is this a new era of empowerment or just the same exploitation in a prettier jersey? Let's talk about it.
Our central theme today is this: Black athleticism has always been political. It has been shaped and often shackled by systems designed to extract profit, maintain control, and reinforce racial hierarchies. Whether on the cotton field, track lanes, tennis courts, or basketball arenas, the black body has been scrutinized, surveilled, and sold to the highest bidder. And the question we must keep asking is, what is the cost of black excellence in sports? How do the aftershocks of slavery still shape the black sports experience mentally, physically, and institutionally? And why do black women in particular face even higher stakes, harsher criticism, and fewer rewards for the same excellence?
We'll answer these questions by peeling back the historical context, spotlighting key case studies, and applying themes from the $40 million slave by William C. Roden and post traumatic slave syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. These aren't just books, they're blueprints. They show us that racism in sports isn't a glitch in the system, it is the system. So grab your drink, take a seat, and get ready, because we're about to travel from the plantation fields to the pro courts and confront the uncomfortable truths in between. Let's get into it. To understand the racial politics of black athleticism today, we got to go back. Not just to Jackie Robinson or Jesse Owens, but way, way back to the slave fields of American South. During slavery, black people weren't seen as human. They were seen as labor. Strength, speed, endurance. All of it was exploited to build wealth for white landowners. Whether picking cotton or working sun up to sundown in the sugarcane fields, the black body was always evaluated for its utility, never its humanity. And that blueprint, it never really left. As William C. Roden lays out in the $40 million slave, American sports evolved directly from that system. The plantation model simply traded whips for whistles and shackles for contracts. By the early 20th century, black athletes started breaking into white dominated sports. Not because America had a moral awakening, but because black talent became too profitable to ignore. Think about heavyweight boxing legend Jack Johnson or track phenom Jesse Owens. They weren't celebrated, they were used. Black athletes were the spectacle, cheered in the ring or on the field, but still denied ownership, endorsements, or any real power. They were the prize, never the boss.
And let's call it what it is. The athlete became the new plantation prize, valued for entertainment, glorified for labor, but stripped of its agency. And just like on the plantation, when the usefulness faded, so did the care, the attention, and the so-called loyalty. And now let's put this under a gender lens. Because if black men were commodified and exploited, black women were doubly erased. They weren't just used for labor. They were hypersexualized, policed, and outright ignored. Their athleticism was often seen as unwomanly. Their strength threatened frail ideals of femininity. You weren't allowed to be dominant and be delicate. It wasn't always either or. From Althea Gibson to Wilma Rudolph, and even today with Shakira Richardson and Angel Reese, black women athletes are held to impossible standards. Too strong, you're aggressive. You're too proud, you're arrogant. You're too fast, you must be cheating. Too confident, You need to be humble. And still, despite all of this, Black women dominate.
Rhoda's concept of the conveyor belt perfectly explains how this system functions. Young black athletes, many from low income backgrounds, are identified early, scouted, and moved through a system that extracts their labor. AAU, high school, college, pro, all while rarely equipping them with the tools to own their labor, their image, or their voice. It's a pipeline that profits off black pain, black performance, and black possibility without ever guaranteeing black protection. But we're going to talk about how that conveyor belt looks in today's world. Because the system may have updated its wardrobe, but it's still working on the same old playbook. Let's get into it. With Rodin's idea of the conveyor belt, this is where the plantation gets rebranded. No more cotton fields, but now it's rec centers, AAU circuits, and D1 athletic programs. The goal's still the same: control, extract, and discard. From as early as 7 or 8 years old, young black athletes, especially boys, but increasingly girls, are scouted, trained, and funneled through a very intentional pipeline. It looks like opportunity. But let's really break it down. Youth sports, AAU or club ball, to NCAA, to the pro leagues. At every stage, there's money being made. But guess who's not getting it? The NCAA is a $1 billion machine. March Madness brings in over $1 billion in ad revenue, and yet, until recently, athletes couldn't even profit off their own name. Even with NIL, name, image, likeness, deals now in play, the system is still rigged. Most of the big sponsorships go to white athletes or those with marketable personas.
Meanwhile, Black women are doing the work on and off the court, carrying teams, creating viral moments, driving fan engagement. But who's getting the primetime slots, the national endorsements, the soft focus stories? Angel Reese can dominate an entire Final Four and still be labeled classless. Flaw J. Johnson can be a top scorer and a hit rapper and still has to defend her every move. Meanwhile, their white counterparts are handed marketing deals and magazine covers just for showing up. This is invisible labor. Black women build the culture, carry the team, and shape the stories, but they rarely control the narrative and definitely don't get equal pay. Now let's talk about what the labor does to the body and mind. Because just like on the plantation, constant labor without real rest or healing leads to breakdown. In post-traumatic slave syndrome, Dr. Joyce DeGruy explains how trauma gets passed down, not just socially, but biologically. Epigenetic trauma, the stress responses our ancestors developed to survive slavery, they're still with us. And you see it in modern sports, playing through pain because we don't quit, avoiding therapy because what happens in the family stays in the family, emotional suppression because you can't be too emotional in the media, not speaking out because you don't want to be seen as angry and ungrateful.
This is sports PTSD, anxiety, exhaustion, burnout, and even identity crises once the cheering stops. Black athletes, especially women, are constantly expected to overperform, undershare, and stay grateful for crumbs. So what do we do with all this? We shine a light. We tell the truth. We disrupt the system. We're going to break down the media's role in keeping this machine running and how fans, sponsors, and even so-called allies are often complicit. The body is conditioned, the mind is bruised, and the soul is silenced. Let's take a breath here, because this is the part people don't always see. The part that doesn't make the highlight reel. We've talked about systems, about control, about exploitation, but what about the internal costs, the wounds we can't see? Let's define what we mean by sports PTSD. It's not a clinical term yet, but it should be. Because for black athletes, especially women, sports aren't always safe spaces. They're arenas where racial trauma, gender-based disrespect, and constant performance pressure collide. Sports PTSD is the cumulative mental, emotional, and physical strain that comes from surviving in racially hostile and emotionally unsafe environments under the constant gaze of fans, media, and institutions. It's being Serena Williams, having your body policed and your tone demonized while nearly dying in childbirth and still being expected to smile through it. It's Naomi Osaka, stepping away from tennis, not because she couldn't win, but because she was drowning in the silence of being misunderstood, targeted, and emotionally burned out. It's Sha'Carri Richardson, grieving her mother and punished for a moment of coping while others got grace in commercials. It's WNBA players who face toxic fan bases, online harassment, and silence from the media until one white player enters the league and suddenly everything is rebranded as exciting. This is not just about individual struggle, it's about a pattern, a syndrome. As Dr. Joy DeGruy calls it, the post traumatic slave syndrome, PTSS. Let's break that down. Internalized oppression, the pressure to be perfect, the fear of making one mistake and having it define you. That's survival mode, passed down from generations told to act right or they'll kill you. Black athletes internalize these expectations. They believe they must do more to be seen as worthy. Emotional suppression, crying in private, smiling in interviews, biting your tongue in press conferences. That's not professionalism. That's a trauma response. We've been taught that showing too much emotion could cost us everything, but that suppression, it builds. It breaks us in quiet ways. Distrust in institution. Whether it's the NCAA, pro leagues, or sports media, many black athletes know deep down the system is not built for us. And that distrust, it isolates. Because when something does happen, racism, unfair treatment, disrespect, there's a quiet voice that says, no one's coming to save you.
So what do we do with all of this? We speak on it. We give it language. We tell these stories not to re-traumatize, but to recognize. Because naming the trauma is the first step to healing it. And in the next segment, we're going to dig deep into how Black athletes are reclaiming spaces, demanding dignity, and creating their own paths, from NIL ventures to mental health advocacy and beyond.
You love what we do, but not who we are. Let's talk about the crowd. Not just the one in the bleachers, but the system of spectatorship, the media, the fans, the culture that turns black athletes into entertainment while denying them empathy, agency, or peace. Because for black athletes, especially black women, the trauma doesn't stop at the buzzer, it multiplies through headlines, comment sections, and broadcast booths. Let's break it down. The media, the curator of the narrative. The media is a mirror, but it's cracked and distorted when it comes to black athletes. What do we see? When Serena shows emotion, she's angry. When Caitlin Clark shows emotion, she's passionate. Angel Reese talks her talk, she's ghetto. A white male athlete does the same, he's fiery. These aren't accidents. This is the deliberate crafting of a double standard where black expression is demonized and white expression is celebrated. And when black athletes speak out on race, on injustice, on mental health, they're told to shut up and dribble, to be quiet, grateful, palatable. But make no mistake, silencing is violence. It denies the full humanity of black athletes and maintains the comfort of a system built on their exploitation. The fans, the beneficiaries, and the enforcers. Now let's talk about them. The same fans who cheer for the dunk, the spike, the goal, but log on later to hurl racial slurs, critique hair and body types, or tell players to stay in their lane when they get too political. The same fans who claim to love the game, but disappear when the game is led by black women. Fans often serve as cultural enforcers, reinforcing white supremacy under the guise of tradition, nostalgia, or just sports. And their power is not passive. They influence coverage. They sway league decisions. They shape public perception. And for black athletes, that means living under constant surveillance, not just for performance, but for behavior, expression, tone, tweets, and even facial expressions. It is exhausting. It is dehumanizing, and it is traumatizing.
The spectacle. Sports are a spectacle, a $1 billion industry built on performance. But what happens when the spectacle demands that you leave your identity at the door? When you are watched but not seen, loved for your moves but hated for your voice. The black athletes becomes a paradox, celebrated and silenced, exalted and exploited. And it loops back into that trauma, into sports PTSD, into the internalized fear of saying too much, of being too loud, of costing yourself your peace, your place, your power. So what do? We start by telling the truth about how media and fans uphold the very systems that traumatize black athletes. We stop pretending sports exists in a vacuum. We stop treating athletes like commodities. And we listen, not to what black athletes do on the court, but what they're telling us off of it.
We're shifting the energy. Let's talk about resistance, reclamation, and how black athletes are breaking free from the conveyor belt. We are not waiting for permission to exist. We're building our own lane. Black athletes, especially black women athletes, have always been resilient. But this moment, this era, we're witnessing something different. We're witnessing rebellion in real time. Not just protest, not just survival, but reclamation. Black women in sports are no longer waiting to be seen. They're rewriting the narrative. They're forcing the lens to shift. They're building brands. They're demanding pay. They're speaking truth to systems that were built to use them and erase them. Let's talk about some of the rebels reshaping the game. Asia Wilson, dominant, decorated, dismissed by mainstream media and still thriving. Asia isn't just an MVP on the court. She's a vocal advocate for black women's visibility in the WNBA. From her unapologetic interviews to her partnership with Nike and Gatorade, she's not just fitting in, she's standing out. Angel Reese, the Bayou Barbie, is changing the game in real time. She's glam, gritty, and completely herself. And that's revolutionary in a world that tells black women to tone it down. Criticized for confidence, called classless for celebrating. But what does she do? She leans in, harder. Angel is proof that ownership of image is political and profitable. Flau'jae Johnson, basketball star in the new NIL era, Rock Nation artist, podcast host, entrepreneur, and real estate mogul. She's not just choosing between athletes and artists, she's building a multi-platform empire. Flau'jae is showing Gen Z that black girls don't have to shrink their talents to be marketable. They can monetize all of them. Nafisa Collier, tired of being underpaid and overlooked, she co-created the Unrivaled League, a player-owned women's basketball league that launched this year. Why? Because waiting on equality doesn't work, so they're building it themselves. That's a legacy. Dawn Staley, a generational coach, a fashion icon, a walking piece of history, a culture setter. She's not just building championship teams, she's building a standard for what black leadership looks like in women's sports. Deals with Under Armour, Aflac, and high-end fashion houses aren't just partnerships. They're proof that excellence, when wrapped in blackness, can still be iconic on our terms. Reclaiming the narrative around emotion and identity. Let's be clear. None of this comes easy. Because when black athletes are assertive, emotional, proud, they're labeled angry, aggressive, divisive. But meanwhile, white athletes showing that same energy, they're called competitive, driven, marketable.
And this is how white supremacy survives in sports culture, through language, through narratives, through framing. But here's the thing. Black athletes aren't just resisting that framing. They're replacing it. They're using their voices on social media, in interviews, and business to own the narrative. They're showing the next generation, you don't have to play the game their way to win. So what does rebellion in real time look like? It looks like legacy over limelight, ownership over approval. It looks like truth, power, and peace all in motion. Coming up next, we're going to close it out with some reflections, a call to action, and a sneak preview of the next episode. From the fields to the courts, racism's grip on black athleticism, and don't go anywhere.
We've unpacked a lot in this episode: history, trauma, resistance, and reclamation. But we can't end there. We need to ask, what does healing look like for black women in sports? And how do we create equity, not just talk about it? First, we need to understand healing isn't just personal, it's collective. Healing is a team sport, y'all. For black women athletes, healing starts with wellness infrastructure that sees the whole person, not just the performer. That means community-based mental health programs rooted in cultural competence. It means putting black therapists, sports psychologists, and wellness coaches in locker rooms, not just PR teams and performance analysts. It means creating safe spaces for vulnerability and expression, because silence is not strength, it's survival mode, and it's not sustainable. Systems must change, not just the athletes. This isn't just about coping within the system, it's about changing it. Policy and pay equity. Equal pay is just the baseline. We need equity in endorsements, access, and coverage. Push for salary transparency, especially in leagues where black women dominate on the court but disappear in marketing budgets. Ownership and agency. We need more athlete-led ownership models like Unrivaled. Black athletes should be shaping not just the games, but the leagues, the schedules, the distribution, and the revenue. Media accountability. Demand racial equity audits in sports media. Track how often black women are interviewed, highlighted, or praised compared to their white counterparts. Pressure networks to invest in diverse commentators, analysts, and production teams.
What can you, the listener, do? This isn't just for player coaches or execs. If you're watching, you're part of the system too. Here's what you can do right now. Support Black-led platforms. Watch, share, and invest your time and money in platforms that elevate black women in sport, whether that's podcasts, newsletters, teams, or brands. Speak up. When you see Black athletes being misrepresented, say something on social, at the game, and around your friends. Demand more from networks. Ask for coverage that reflects the real demographics of excellence. Write to sponsors. Amplify Black stories. Don't let the silence become the story. Change doesn't happen at the top. It starts with awareness, then accountability, then action. And as we move into our final thoughts, remember, this isn't about building a world where Black excellence doesn't come at a cost of Black well-being.
As we close out this powerful episode, let's not forget where we started. The roots of Black athleticism stretch far deeper than the stat sheets, highlight reels, or podiums. They stretch back to fields of forced labor, to systems of control, to histories of survival, and yet here we are. Black women, Black athletes, still rising, still dominating, still dreaming in systems not built for us. Let that sink in. Black brilliance has never just been about the game, it's been about defying the rules of the game itself. And while trauma leaves its scars, mental, emotional, spiritual, we also carry joy, genius, and resistance in every step, every sprint, every shot. The truth is, the next generation of Black athletes aren't just for players. They're revolutionaries with sneakers on. They're creating leagues, owning brands, setting boundaries, and refusing to be silenced. So as we move forward, keep asking, who benefits from Black talent? Who controls the narrative? And how do we reclaim our power on and off the court? If this episode moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, share it with your crew, and subscribe to the channel. Join the movement. Don't just watch the game, question it. Because this is not just sports, this is polysports. And remember, we don't just play to win, we play to shift the system. That's your polysports power play for the day. Next up, profit and power. Who really wins with NIL? We'll be breaking down the Trojan horse of NIL and the control mechanisms that are coming in the Trump executive order, influenced by Nick Saban in the era of white political grievance. Stay woke, stay watching, and as always, be wise. This is Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies and Political Lil, my never bite her tongue co-host. Y'all stay tuned. Talk soon.